I kind of pulled together, like, after reading all these books and, like, after watching all this self-development content on YouTube, there's one really, 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 really important thing that can solve almost everything, and it's so simple. And some people do it without even realizing it. So the concept is,
finally, there will be unexpected hurdles on your way to success, unfair circumstances as well. Don't waste time and energy complaining or worrying about it. Adjust and move forward. I've got a good example here. Like, the first thing to note is that the world doesn't give a shit about you. And I know that seems like a very callous thing to say, quite nihilistic, but it's true. The universe is literally infinite. There's 7 billion people on this planet, and the world does not give a fuck about you. And it's on you to give a fuck about you. And unfortunately, the world is going to shit on you at some point in your life, probably repeatedly. No one's really going to be that compassionate or caring about it. And only you essentially can get yourself out of that situation. And more often than not, I mean, sometimes it's you have an actual problem, but more often than not, it's not actually something that's happened to you, but just your perspective, and the way that you perceive what's happened to you. And you know, if you have a bad run, you know, obviously, let's say in poker you have a bad run, financially, you know, maybe you can't pay the bills or something like that, or you have to work extra hours, something along those lines. That's obviously a problem. But if you have a bad run and it just feels bad, well, then that's on you. That's your perception of the situation, and you can change that by just changing the way that you feel about it. So when you have a bad run, instead of saying, this is terrible, I wish this hadn't happened to me, why did I have to hit such a bad run right now? You know, why does PokerStars do this to me? Blah, 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 blah. What you really should be saying is, okay, things aren't going too well. Why don't I review my game and take this as an opportunity to break through a barrier or prove myself? So take this as an opportunity to say, okay, this is a challenge. And how am I going to react to this challenge? And then that means that in future, when you face those challenges, that you're going to be better at dealing with them. So often it's perception. The example I was going to use, Jack, just quickly, is I said last year I wanted to get bigger because I stopped eating meat, became a vegetarian, lost a whole heap of weight, and not in a good way, because I've always been a small guy anyway. So I started to look pretty gaunt, and a few of my friends were like, dude, are you all right? You look kind of ill, right? It wasn't like, oh, hey, you've lost weight. It was like, dude, you look really fucking skinny. So I was like, right, I'm going to put on like half a stone to a stone. How am I going to go about this? So I was like, right, okay, most important thing, I'm going to up my calories and start working out. So I started working out and doing like push-ups and stuff like that. And one of the things I wanted to do was run or do the stair climber at the gym, right? And then my hips started to hurt. I went to the doctors, went for an MRI. Sure enough, you've got arthritis, right, in your hips. And now both my hips need replacing. I found this out at 31. Okay, I think it's pretty reasonable to say that at 31, arthritis in my hips was unexpected. I would probably describe it as unfair as well, highly unusual, but there's nothing I could do about it. Like, I moped about it for a couple of days, and I realized that this isn't changing anything. Like, moping about it doesn't mean that I can run on the treadmill. So instead, what I did was I bought a weight jacket and I started walking on the treadmill. And it meant I had to walk for twice as long as I used to run, but I ended up getting the same output. And in terms of then doing the push-ups, I wanted to get bigger. Like I said, I was doing push-ups, and then I got a tendonitis injury in my elbow, and no longer could I do push-ups. Okay, again, super pissed off about it for a day or two. And then I went online and found out what people with this injury do, and I bought one of those power bags that you lift, and it doesn't cause my elbow to hurt. And I have put on, I think I put on like 3/4 of a stone in that time frame. Within the time that I got diagnosed with arthritis and tendonitis. And both of those were massive, massive hurdles. And I was ready to give up at those points, but then I found a way around them. Okay, so I couldn't get over those hurdles. I can't get over the hurdle that I have arthritis or tendonitis, but I managed to find a way around them. Okay, and I spent a lot of time and a lot of effort essentially dealing with those barriers that came up for me. And those barriers present themselves all the way throughout life. Definitely in poker, lots of unexpected hurdles will come up in poker and throw you right off course. And if you can't get over them, I think you need to find a way around them. Yeah, Jack, I'm sure you've got plenty more to add, but
I mean, everything you just said, adjust and move forward. That's really what you did. And I want to reference the book to talk about this point as well, because in the book, so he becomes a Tai Chi master.
Yeah.
And he goes to a Tai Chi competition, okay? And before the competition, they send you, so there's like in Tai Chi, they have like a circle like that you fight in, like it's like just like a circular, like little, like imaginary, like the lines, like there's like a circle and you have to like do the Tai Chi inside that circle. If you get out of the circle, you lose a point or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it was like a few months before the competition, they send everyone the measurements of the circle. Okay, so they send this guy, the author of the book, the measurements of the circle, and then when he gets to the competition, the measurements weren't right. The circle was way smaller, and he was practicing and training with the circle that was supposed to be at the competition.
Yeah.
Right. And so he gets to the competition, and the circle was smaller. Now he has to adjust his entire strategy, all the training he's done. Like his back feet are like just like hitting the lines, and like he's just not, playing as well. And he was like explaining like he can, spend time worrying and complaining about that shit, or he can just figure it out and just do what you got to do. Like, life's gonna throw a lot of curveballs at you, and in poker, there's gonna be a lot of variance thrown at your face as well, and like Scott said, really, nobody gives a rat's ass, to be honest. Like, that's like the brutal truth.
Nobody spent very long like comforting me when I got my diagnosis for arthritis. That people were like, "Oh, dude, that sucks. Like, that's a bummer," and then they got over it really quickly. No one's gonna care like you care.
Yeah, I mean, like they'll like empathize with you. Not saying that they won't empathize with you, but like at the end of the day, like, if you're not going to adjust and move forward and you're going to dwell on it, you're only hurting yourself. Like, like what's happened has happened already. Like, you're not, you can't change the past. All right. You can't change the past. If you've gone through a bad string of variants, you can't do anything about it.
Who hasn't?
It already happened.
Who hasn't?
The only thing you can do is adjust and move forward. And I do want to talk about a concept now. That's the concept that I don't think I've ever spoken about, because it's actually going to be in the book that I'm writing.
That he's writing.
Yeah. I'm writing a book that I've been writing for like last 3-4 years. I've been like just kind of like just writing some really important things that I've learned in my life.
Exclusive news.
So one of the biggest concepts that I kind of pulled together, like after reading all these books and like after watching all this self-development content on YouTube, there's one really, 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 really important thing that can solve almost everything, and it's so simple. And some people do it without even realizing it. So the concept is to replace your worries or your anxieties with strategic action. So what do I mean by that? Like, give me something that somebody might be worried about, Scott, and I'm going to give you a few examples, just so like anybody who's made it this far, congratulations, because you're the first ones to really get this concept out of this book that I haven't written yet. But give me an example of something somebody's worried about, and I'll tell you what I mean by this, so you really get a good gist of it.
In poker or in life?
Anything.
Okay.
Anything at all.
I'll give you one that I struggle with, because I'm quite psychosomatic. Let's say someone's really worrying about like a health issue, like a mysterious pain that they've got in their torso. Something like that. Okay,
so let's say you're worrying about a pain that you have in your torso. Where do you think that pain, like, where do you think that worry roots from, for example? Like, where do you think that came from?
Why did I think of that one, or where does the worry come from?
Where does the worry come from, in your opinion? Like, let's say you're the one worried about that. Like, where do you think that, like, why a pain, or why your torso?
Well, for me, it's just like, for my psychosomatic ways, or neurotic, or however you want to phrase it, like, for me, it's like the worry comes from just like fear of dying. I always think that when I have a mysterious pain, I'm like, right, that's it, I'm going to die. And so it comes from my subconscious, really, because I don't actively think about it. It's just like I feel the pain, and immediately I feel the feelings of anxiety. I feel the feelings of stress. I presume my brain floods itself with cortisol, But for me, that's where it comes from. I know that deep down where it's coming from is the fear that this might kill me.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you have like a strong fear of like dying, like, and there's a word for that. It's called a hypochondriac.
Hypochondriac, neurotic, psychosomatic. All of these three are kind of interchangeable. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and I'm a mega hypochondriac. Yeah. Big time.
And you know what's funny? I used to be a pretty big hypochondriac myself.
Right.
My friends used to label me that. My cousins used to label me that.
Yeah.
They're like, dude, you're a fucking hypochondriac. I'm always just like, oh, I have this, I have diabetes, I have that.
You know, funny enough,
they're like, dude, you don't have shit, man.
It's
like,
considered a mental illness. Like it is. Yeah, genuinely.
I literally like used to have that. But yeah, well, that's funny. Anyways, go to the point. So let's say you're worried about that.
Yeah.
Okay. You're worried about, let's say it's a health thing. It's just like I guess in general, like you're just worried about your health. Is that fair to say? I mean,
very fair to say.
I think it's just fair to say, like, you're worried about your health. You want to not die. Like, so what's the strategic action that you can replace that worry with? I'll ask you. Does anything come to mind?
Okay.
What kind of strategic action can you take to replace the worry?
There's one that you should take and one that you shouldn't take, and one is easy and one is difficult. And I always go for the easy one, and it doesn't help, and it makes things worse.
Okay, let's hear
it. So the strategic action is to say, okay, I need to go see a doctor. So I'm going to call the doctors and book an appointment. And if you're in the UK, keep pestering the doctors until I get an appointment. And then up until that point, I'm not going to worry about it because I can't fix this issue without knowing what's going on until a doctor diagnoses it. What I actually do is Google it straight away and then worry that I am going to die. Essentially, a cyberchondriac.
Okay. Yeah, I used to Google a lot of things too. I got lost in Google with a lot of bad.
Well, there's a reason there's a phrase for it, cyberchondria. It's because so many people will feel unwell or feel a pain, Google it. Yeah, that's right. I've got.
And you'll just read the word.
I've got cancer and AIDS at the same time. Yeah, basically.
But that's not the only strategic action you can take. That's part of it. Like,
right.
I would say a strategic action to alleviate that would be, first of all, to make a doctor's appointment, to tell him exactly what you're feeling, to get to the bottom of it, have him tell you like everything's okay or whatever's going on.
Yeah.
But also to be more conscious of your health, to be conscious of what you put in your body, to be conscious of that you do exercise X amount of time per day, to make sure that you're taking the steps to preserve your health. So the strategic action there would be exercising, eating healthier, moving around more throughout the day as much as you can to be in a healthy kind of mindset, and going to the doctor to get everything confirmed. So that would be the strategic action there. And once you take those actions, your worry is just going to kind of go away. You're like, I'm doing everything in my power to make sure my health is perfect. I eat great. I'm exercising daily. I do a lot of walking. I get massages, like whatever it may be that you think you need to optimize your health, you're doing it, right? Yeah. And once you're doing that, you just immediately start feeling better. So let's go over a couple more examples of how this can work. Let's talk about a different worry. What's a different worry? Bring something else.
The most natural one for me is when I hit break-even periods or losing periods. Like straight away, you just immediately worry. But this is something that over time that I've learn how to deal with, because even though I get kind of sulky over it for a very short period of time, I know the steps now to change that. And so what I used to do was panic about it, and now what I do is I just look through my database and then I think about the situation, then I look in the solver or I go to a fellow coach and ask for a second opinion. So I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say, what's interesting to me is just the way that you placed it out, like in terms of like kind of a bulleted strategy.
It's like a strategic, logical strategy to combat the irrational emotional feelings. So it's like the same, like if you're going through a break-even stretch here. So what is the strategic action you can take? I would argue a strategic action in that case would be to study more poker, first of all, study more fish game poker, or study more reg game poker, or whatever you think is lacking. So to study more
Yeah.
but also to review your hands. Because like I find that when I have like a bad day
Mm-hmm.
and I review my hands and then I see that I played everything like how I would play it again if I had the chance,
Yeah.
I automatically feel better.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like, okay, now I feel better. I reviewed my hands, everything looks clean. Like I am happy with everything that I did,
Yeah.
everything that I played, and I already feel better about it. And the strategic action almost always, though, for a break even or losing stretch is to get better at poker, obviously, always,
Mm-hmm.
but also to get better at accepting those kind of stretches as well. So there's like an opportunity to come to acceptance with that kind of losing,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of an interesting dynamic there too. Like, so like every single like negative thing that happens to you in your life, you know, before we got on this call, it's funny. I was telling Scott that the front of my scalp is thinning. And so my scalp is thinning in quite a big way. You can't really see it in this webcam. Like it's hard to tell.
I'm wearing a hat.
But my hair is thinning, you know, quite a lot towards the front, and my crown is thinning. And every day, almost, I feel like I look in the mirror and it's like it's thinning even more. And every time something negative happens in your life, see it as like a test. Okay, are you gonna pass this test? You know, it's funny. There's a really savage guy. His name is Dan Pena. He's really savage. But he says, ask yourself this. He's like, every day is a test. Did you pass? Question mark. Did you pass the test today? All the shit that was thrown at you. You might have had shit thrown at you today. And you know what's funny is during the times when the shit is getting thrown at us, the shit in this case being break even or losing days, right? In the midst of that, it feels so bad.
Yeah.
But it's really like when you step back and you view it as like a test where you're like, I'm being tested now. Let me pass this test. Let me show the poker gods, the actual gods, and everyone around me and myself that I can handle this situation.
Mm.
Okay, I'm being tested now. This is my opportunity to pass this test, to accept this and pass this test. And then when you pass the test, like you can feel good about it. You're like, wow, like I actually went through a break even or losing stretch for like a couple of weeks or even a month or whatever, maybe even longer. And like, I actually am making it through. Like I'm actually passing this test, and you'll start to feel better about yourself because you're making some kind of progress there. And in the midst of that, you'll be studying more poker too to make sure that you're going to get out of the stretch. You'll study more poker. You'll even play more poker. You'll do everything you can on a logical standpoint to get out of the stretch. But you'll also see it as like this test and this opportunity you get to pass the test. So it's kind of like a shift there in how you kind of see these hurdles. Like all these things are being thrown at you. And like I was saying before, like we think it's the end of the world when we're in the midst of it, right, Scott? Like you're in the midst of a downswing, you're like, this is the end of the world. Like, what the fuck am I gonna do?
It's all over.
You know, like this is the end.
It's all
but
over.
Then we forget to realize that, you know, there are people in this world, first of all, that live off like $1 a day, you know, and that like are slaving around in like third world countries, and people that have like no legs and like arms, and like people that are fucking, they have cancer, and like there's so many worse things that can happen. And once we bring that to the forefront of our mind, and then we realize like how irrational and ridiculous we're being about losing, like, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000, like whatever it may be, it's really not a big deal, like, to be quite honest, like in the grand scheme of things, like, but we make it out to be such a big deal in the moment. And it's a good test for us, like to build our resilience, like when we're going through those downswings. And like, so sometimes they can be really good things. So we don't have to always see it as like a very terrible situation. Like it's a situation where you're being tested and you have a chance to grow and expand and like implement the things you've been learning about how to accept and be okay with losing.